Hello there. I'm Julienne Ryan, and I'm the author of the Learned It in Queens Communication Playbook, Winning Against Digital Distraction. I'm a speaker, a trainer, and a coach who uses storytelling and humor as a communications bridge builder. And I'm guessing I know what you're thinking. How did you come up with this title, and why is it so long? Well, I'm going to explain it to you by interviewing myself and then sharing a few excerpts from the books as we move forward. And if we have time, answering a few questions. My little book started its life a few years ago as a major complaint that the human race had mutated and had turned itself into a heads down, living in a bubble species. Because eye contact is becoming a lost art, digital miscommunications were rampant, and live conversations were becoming a rarity. And how did I come to this conclusion? I have been paying attention to what was getting people in trouble in their workplace and in their personal lives. And I've been listening to clients talk about their communication challenges. But I've also been observing people during my daily commutes and sometimes overheard their conversations. Now, you might call that eavesdropping, perhaps, but I prefer to call it doing some research. And besides, New Yorkers are loud talkers when they're out and about. But what was I hearing? No matter who they were and what they did, everybody was complaining about the same things. Their messages were getting misinterpreted, unanswered, ignored, or they weren't getting the responses they wanted. So I realized our digital frustrations were the one thing we had in common and that we all could agree on. And whether we realized it or not, we were all simultaneously contributing and suffering from digital miscommunications. So I started to ask myself this question: what's the matter with us and why don't we know any better? And is this when I decide to write a book? No, not yet. What I did get to do is write a humorous speech about this topic. And I was asked to go to a national conference, and I was delighted. And that was until I found out what that entailed. I was going to be asked to speak on a big stage in front of a mega screen to 500 type A executives first thing in the morning. Oh, and here's another thing. They were there to buy and sell digital technology, the very thing that I wanted to complain about. So I had a moment or two, and I thought, what the heck am I going to say to these people that they're going to look up and listen to me? I didn't have a fancy title, and they're going to hear my Queen's accent reverberating across this whole ballroom. But then my inner Queen's voice piped up inside and said, listen, you're going to have to keep it authentic and just show up as you are. Great. I hope that works. But that thinking prompt was what started the speech and then the book. And I stopped trying not to say words like ideas here and there, and instead embraced my roots and made Queens my visual metaphor and thinking prompt for the story. So there is the next stage is question is what happened? I performed a comic routine and explained to 500 executives that I was not anti-technology. I was anti-bad communications, and that more frequently than not, we were depending on these things to handle all our communications for us. But sooner or later, we're going to have to spend some time talking to a living, breathing person. So we need to start developing some skills like listening, focus, paying attention, and maybe a little bit of eye contact. And they laughed, which was a good thing. So did I write the book when I got back? No. This book had so many stops and starts. I tried many, many times in many different ways to bring what worked on the stage to the page. I added information, I took information out. I put psychological terms in, I took those out. Finally, with good guidance and collaboration, decided to make it a simple playbook that was a one-sided conversation. The playbook is a picture book, and it uses relatable and memorable images to demonstrate our challenges. And I am going to take a brave moment here and see if I can share a picture to show you what I'm talking about. So, Eve, you're going to tell me if you can see that slide. If not, I'm going to cursor out. So I have an angry red dude here that I was trying to show, and he is always aggravated and upset. He's always losing his temper. He's always looking down, and he's exactly who we don't want to be. So the other thing we start to look at is why call it a playbook? Well, first of all, sports are such a big part of our language and our culture. And I thought it'd be much more fun to call my guiding points rules, instead of rules, plays. So, one example I have in the book is a slice of pizza. And just like we eat a slice of pizza in New York, we fold it. We hold it together so the oil and the cheese doesn't go flying off of us and onto us or other people. Well, I understand when we have challenges, it's really easy to want to lose it, especially when you made 30 calls and you tried 20 different ways to say, I'm circling back to you again. We need to hold it together like that slice of pizza and just be cool. So keep it authentic, but most important, keep it together. So, what's my book's core message? Live and in person conversations do matter and make a big difference. I'm calling on all of us to use the power of small things to make a difference and seek opportunities for an in your space conversation rather than an in your face discourse. I would like us to create front stoop moments so we can start to learn and listen about other people's experiences as we connect with them one story and one conversation at a time. Now, I used a word a few seconds ago, stoop, and maybe some of you don't know what that is. Well, stoop is a group of steps, but it's a Dutch word. Now, even though the Dutch gave up New York in 1664 and everything changes in this city, we still in Brooklyn and in Queens use the word stoop. But a stoop is more than a group of bricks or a place to walk on to get into a door. It's a place to gather, it's a place to communicate and learn. So, what did I learn about from writing this book? Well, a lot of things about collaboration, on sharing ideas and asking for guidance. But one of the most important things is I learned a fresh perspective about Queens and what growing up in Queens had taught me some important things about communicating and learning with other people that are different from myself and come from all over the world. So I'm going to use that comment as my cue to read you a few excerpts from my book and explain what it was to be from Queens and why our borough can teach the rest of the world a couple of things about digital communications and how to navigate it, as well as about living with others. First of all, Queens is a dynamic, diverse borough of almost 2.3 million people. 48% are foreign born and speak over 800 languages. That's a lot of diversity, complexity, coexisting happening in one area that's only 109 miles square. There's a lot of opportunities for miscommunication, but we also have plenty of moments here to learn about people that are different than us. The second reason that Queens came to mind when I was thinking about digital communications is we get lost a lot. It's just like our lost emails and texts and voicemails. Now, if we're really honest with each other, we'll tell anybody that nobody really understands how to get around our borough. The place is confusing. Roads start, they stop, they end, and they repeat and intersect someplace else. So you have 32nd Streets, 32nd Court, 32nd Avenues. It never ends. When you spend a substantive part of your formative years getting lost and trying to figure things out, all that confusion and frustration leaves its mark. It shapes personalities and impacts how we deal with the world. Queensites end up being what we call a little bit quirky. And these are a few people that come from our borough: Christopher Walken, Cyndi Lauper, Aquafina, John Leguizamo, and there's so many others. But like those Queensites who are trying hard to get from one place to another, when we are frustrated and confused, when our digital communications aren't working, we have to just take a pause and figure out some options. So here's another thing that being from Queens is about. Queensites plan their daily lives like a military operation. There's no such thing as rolling out the door and just showing up anywhere. We're always asking questions and having a different plan. Is anybody landing ahead of state at JFK today? Are the Mets having a home game? Now we have to get someplace. Is it just quicker to walk those 5 miles and try to wait for some kind of transportation? So, just like us, we have to figure out another type of plan or alternative when our communications are stuck and aren't moving. So, how do Queens people cope when they're challenged? Well, we eat. We never stop talking or eating. When we're lost, we look around and say, oh, there's a new food. I haven't tried that. Let me just take a break. Now, I think Queensites have an amazing capacity to eat their own and other people's food. And it's probably why we've done such a great job getting along in such a diverse and borough being the most diverse borough in New York, if not in the whole country. The thing is, we get into a whole lot less trouble when we're communicating because our mouth is usually full of food. And while we're chewing, we get a chance to listen to what other people are saying. So the next time you encounter a communication challenge, take it from a Queensite. Create a front stoop moment and connect with each other. One story and one conversation at a time. And don't forget to eat. That's an important part of our lives here. So I'm going to take some questions or just keep sharing some stories. One of the things when I was learning while we're listening, before I got on the call a little early when there were two publishers that were talking about their indie writers, and they were making such a compelling discussion about what it takes to be creative. And one of the things that we sometimes underestimate when we're doing this work is we really depend on other people's guidance. If anybody's looking to write, one of the things that made a big difference in getting this book out and published it was asking for feedback, asking for guidance, and also working off my gut. One of the things that helped was having a small writing group where people weighed in. Some really dear friends and new friends and old friends were giving feedback for excerpts and reading it all over and over and over again. They read the speech when it was created, and then they read the book. And that really made a difference. The other thing that came out of the book was serendipity. When during COVID-19, when I was starting to work on it, and get this project done, I had a conversation with a very talented friend of mine who's a storyteller. And I asked him what he was doing during the whole shutdown period. And one of the things he shared was that he was an editor and a publisher. And it made such a big difference to have someone to play off ideas and guide. And one of the important guidances was we always have to take a work that we're very proud of and step away. And when I had written this speech and it was successful, one of the things I had to do was take his guidance when he suggested to reformatting it and look at the work I had written in a new way. So I have to be honest, it was like, that's my baby. The speech worked. How is this going to work? But it was taking a pause and not talking, asking good questions, and listening. Listening made such a big difference. And you know what happened? When I read the way he put it together and reconfigured it and added edits, it worked. Amazingly enough, it worked. So that's one guiding point. The other thing is artistic collaboration. When I originally did the speech, I was all enthusiastic. I had all these images of what was going to work. And some of them in the book, I'm sorry, my angry red guy didn't get to show up today, but he's out there in cyberspace. Um, I came up with 30 images in my head, like captions of what I wanted to have. And this wonderful art director that I had worked with and was a friend, he said, "How long do you have? You can't get people to think and react that far." So a lot of the same pictures still are in the book, and I added all my own photographs. And one with the beautiful thing is both the editor that I had met, a friend who was a storyteller, and this art director came together. So one of the things about creative is about being collaborative and pulling people together. So every time there was a problem or well, let's say a challenge, it's a kind word, and things stuck and things weren't moving along, it was an opportunity to say, what else can we do? So I added pictures after and say, wait, I love food. And my editor, Tom, who's sitting in the middle of the Midwest, learning how to speak with a Queen's accent, was like, we're going to add that into the book. That's something important to you, and it's a fun thing. So I used a picture for my brother. Another thing is use personal pictures from my neighborhood. So each step really helped the process. And then there's something I can talk about. It was the Queen's goodbye. Now, that wasn't in the speech or the original draft till I sent the book to a colleague and asked her to review it and maybe share a quote on Amazon. Um, and she said I left her. Now, Queens has an expression that we all have, flat leave. I don't know if it's used now, but it was when we were growing up. And it was like when you're having a conversation, your friend just leaves you and never tells you what's going on. And she said I left her flat at the end of the book. I didn't close, I didn't say goodbye. So again, had to pause, had to take that guidance and think about what to do. And that it ended up being a Queen's goodbye of how we part. Now, I'd love to hear from other people, but in Queens, a Queen's goodbye is quite lengthy. First of all, we ask you if you want to take some food home. Secondly, we know you're going to get lost, so we're trying to prevent that because that's a bad experience. So we're giving you directions. We'll also offer to lead you to wherever you're going just to cut the time that needs to happen. And then we walk you from the house, down the stoop, down to the sidewalk, out to the car, and keep talking for another hour. And that is the way it happens. But that's the moments that really make a difference. So coming back to what I shared about front stoop moments. Um, we sometimes don't appreciate what we had growing up till we leave it and have some perspective because Queens was not the coolest place it was going to be from when I was growing up. You want to be in New York, or that was it. And as I look back, we had really great opportunities to mix and come together and really learn a lot of different things. And my call to the front stoop is really, we are so impatient with each other lately. We're not listening. The young lady who was on before me did a beautiful job, reading her book about what growing up is and what people are trying to teach their kids to keep them protected. And I think my call to action is for us to be curious, to take an interest, to be patient, do more listening than talking, I think is the most important thing we can do now. And sometimes to come up and pick our heads up from these things. So reach out and connect. My name is Julienne Ryan. You can find me at J Ryan Partners, Be Engaged at Work. Thank you, Eve, for putting that up there. And I also want to thank both Eve and Gennady for the opportunity to speak today. So give your communications a chance, be patient, and approach each communication with a smile and a lot of listening. Thank you so much.